everybody. Welcome to the Press Club. I'm Sizwe Dlamini, and today I'm going to be interviewing Mike Stainbank, who has actually gone out and told the world that, the judiciary here is corrupt to the core. You can follow his hashtag #SaveBraMike on social media and various other platforms. Welcome, Mike. Welcome to the Press Club. Tell me more about the hashtag Justice for Mike.
Okay. That's another story that makes me cry. Black House Collective is an organization based in Soweto, and they were surprised when they got to learn about this case after so many years. So for the past 8 years, Black House Collective has been the support structure for my family.
The one thing I'd like to ask you is maybe you could take us from the beginning. Tell us more about the truth behind the Apartheid Museum.
Okay. Sizwe, may I suggest that I start in 1990 when I registered the trademark, the Apartheid Museum. And in starting at that point, I would like for you to understand what a trademark means. A trademark is covered by international statute. And if we're going to understand what it is that's going to take place in this interview, you have to understand that it's protected by law. And that is by virtue of international treaties that South Africa is a signatory to through the United Nations. And if you don't have a grasp of that as the foundation, you would then not get to understand this case. And one of the protections of a trademark, and this is the underlying part of this case, one of the protections of a trademark is that you cannot go out and register a company using my trademark. Now, if I could just set that as a concrete base, from then on you will be able to understand it, because as my trademark, I own the proprietary rights to exploit the trademark that comes out of my own intellectual workings. So the story that I am going to tell you that starts in 1990 is the registration of the trademark, the Apartheid Museum. Now, when I registered the trademark in 1990, you must remember, other than the white regime, few of us knew that there were clandestine meetings on Robben Island and all over the world with the African National Congress. Few of us knew that. So the story then begins at a point where the Registrar of Trademarks receives an application for a trademark called the Apartheid Museum. He doesn't even have to think about whether it exists. Because when you apply for a trademark, the first thing he's got to do is to see if whether it exists in somebody else's name.
Yeah.
So in 1990, nobody knows that Mr. Mandela and the African National Congress is engaged in clandestine meeting with our oppressors. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Registrar of Trademarks is faced in a similar position. This is a no-brainer. There is no Apartheid Museum. It's not going to be, and there's never going to be one, because we're going to stay in charge of this place. Do you get that? Is that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense to you. Okay. So the trademark is registered in 1990. Now, in order to understand the story, we got to link it to the passing of the Gambling Act, which happens in 1996, and then the applications for casino licenses. Okay, so I'm jumping a whole lot of years to bring you to the nub of the story. So what then happens in the nub of the story is that one of the applicants for a casino license is Gold Reef City Casino. Okay?
Right.
Now, the trouble starts at the point where on the 18th of November 2001, a Jewish journalist by the name of Jeremy Gordon, writing for the Sunday Independent, he comes out with this headline that says, the exact words go along, Solly Kroc found inspiration for the Apartheid Museum while visiting the Holocaust Museum in America, Washington. I don't know where that is. So anyway, that is when, it's from that day that my world and the world of my family begins to crumble. And so as this story unravels, I will take you into Gold Reef City Casino and what happens for all of those, it's now 20 years. That includes a prison sentence.
Yeah, there's several things there that come into play. But just one thing I want to check with you first.
Yes.
When you talk about the Sunday Independent, are you talking about the local Sunday Independent, like our Sunday Independent?
Your Sunday Independent, but I understand that this happens before you've taken control of Sunday Independent. Sunday Independent at that time was owned by the Irish, I think.
Yes,
Independent group.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense, because after we took over, we've obviously opened up our narrative to speak towards transformation and things like that. And this is actually quite an opportunity for you to tell us more about that history. Yeah, Mike, I think we've lost me and the viewers there a bit. Let's go back a bit. So you've registered the trademark.
Right.
Now, can you please take us through from, after the registration of the trademark in 1990, right up until, the latest developments?
Okay. So there's the registration of the trademark in 1990. So I continue with the development of the concept of the Apartheid Museum, which by 1990 is fairly well developed to the point that I registered the trademark. It's fairly well developed. So between the years 1990 and 1994, it's further development. But the first time that it's actually presented is presented on A4 paper to Ace Magashule in the Free State Province, who is working in the Department of Tourism. And Monsieur Lekota was the premier at that time. Okay, so that's the first time. But then as the years go on, I begin to accumulate some capital, and in 1998, I produce a 48-page full-color prospectus that outlines the detail of the Apartheid Museum. We're at the year 1998 when that happens. Now, in order for you to, and there's that date sequence that's so important, in order for you to understand where the problem lays, is that the gambling board sits and approves the Gold Reef City Casino license in 1997. All right?
Yeah.
They make application, right, for the casino license. One of the things that they have to do, they have to provide something through what they call a corporate social investment, something for the community. So what Gold Reef City Casino says is that they're going to build a project called Freedom Park. Okay?
Yes.
And their presentation to the gambling board is a very sketchy one, but the essence of it is that it's a tribal village. That's what it really is, if I could break it down. It's that Verwoerdian notion that we are just tribes and not one united South African. So that was the idea that they give to the gambling board. But then what happens is that in order to give substance to Freedom Park, they have difficulty in bringing forward that substance. And it just so happens that my prospectus, my 48-page full-color prospectus, happens to get into the marketplace in September of 1998. Now, when the gambling board gives them the license, they say you have 3 years to complete Freedom Park, right? Mm-hmm. Freedom Park. So they start with Freedom Park, and then my prospectus gets into the marketplace.
How did you, sorry to cut you off there,
Yeah.
how did your prospectus get into the marketplace?
By printing 5,000 of them and then distributing them to government, to Nelson Mandela, to Thabo Mbeki, to government, to every newspaper publication in South Africa, including embassies and everybody that was, what would you call it, that would be interested in something like this. So the Free State came on board just through a verbal presentation, like a business plan on an A4 paper. They came into it that way as the provincial government, okay? So now I've got a prospectus, and it's distributed so everybody looks at it. So what happens is Gold Reef City Casino gets a hold of it, and they look at what they've got, and they say, but no, why don't we steal this? And then they steal that, and they abandon Freedom Park. But they abandon Freedom Park in the full knowledge that the contract with the gambling board is your representative against, let me try that, let me come at that again. A casino license or a gambling license belongs to the people of South Africa. It belongs to you. It's a public license, not like a bicycle license. It's a public license. So the people elect the Gauteng Gambling Board to oversee the applicant for the license. So with the gambling board is what you call the regulatory authority, to ensure that the license that is given is a privilege of the people based on the probity and the honesty of the applicant. And in this particular case, the primary funders are Abe and Solly Kroc, or the Kroc family, if you want to call them that, right?
Yeah,
the Kroc family are the primary funders there. And then they get involved with people like Roel Khoza, who leads. He's the chairman. They take him as the chairman. Then you've got Phineas Mojapelo, the deputy judge president. He's also in there as one of those directors. Brian Clubby's in there. Richard Moloko's in there. Which there's a couple of other so-called black names that are in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So have I then covered the basic understanding of how that thing works? So when Jeremy Gordon of the Sunday Independent says that Solly Kroc conceived the Apartheid Museum for that license, it's a total lie. Because it's in the records of the gambling board. Oh, which is, and I meant to say it at the beginning of this interview. What I say to you today has not been denied by anybody. So everybody who hears me, if I say to you that Roel Khoza is a criminal, it's on the basis that I've told Roel Khoza is a criminal. Okay. So you should feel free about that. These are my words. Okay. So you have a circumstance in which the gambling board, and at that time the chairman of the gambling board is Advocate Vincent Maleka, SC. His deputy is Ishmael Semenya, the deputy chair. So at the moment that Gold Reef City Casino abandons Freedom Park, they effectively, on law, have lost the license.
From the moment they abandoned Freedom Park?
They've lost the license.
But
because the license was a temporary license on the basis that within 3 years you complete Freedom Park.
Okay, yeah, no, okay. I get it.
Now, the thing that the gambling board doesn't do is it doesn't tell the public that the Apartheid Museum was never in the bid. And for as long as Freedom Park is not built, that license should never have been made permanent. All right?
Okay, yeah. Now, my main question here is, so effectively what these guys did is they abandoned their project.
Yes.
And then stole your intellectual property.
Thank you. Yes.
And then used that to build their. Now, how that's
and media. Sorry, just to interrupt that. And And media pushed that story. Now, you can't, there's no way that it's very hard to hold media accountable, especially when government and media are working together. It's extremely hard because there's nothing, they call it freedom of the press, even though they're lying. When Kathy Satchwell did this media inquiry into ethics, my documentation, in my view, I can't prove it because they never called me, but my documentation was in my view, the thickest, and I did not accuse the media of being, what was the words that I used? I accused them of being criminal in that they perpetuated the lie. Mainstream media perpetuated the lie that Solly and Abe Kroc, starting with Jeremy Gordon, going to Charlotte Bauer in the Sunday Times on the 2nd of December, and everybody else just picked that up. And up to today, nobody has apologized for that lie. And they perpetuated a criminal lie. When I was doing a talk in Soweto the other day, one of the youngsters, this varsity student, he says, I pass that place all of the time, and I never even knew that it's owned by Gold Reef City Casino.
Mm.
It's owned. Yeah, they own it.
That's actually quite interesting because, I'm not going to speak on behalf of all media. However, yes, the media operates based on information supplied to it, and the verification processes, just pretty much as limited as the amount of information. But I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have you here. So you can tell us, more about this story. And, what I'd like to know now is how did it affect you? How did all of these things affect you? Immediately after this whole thing, how did it affect you going forward from?
Well, what then happened was that it's the 20 years of litigation. I've been in 20 years of litigation, and I'd mentioned to you earlier on, I have a prison sentence hanging on my head that was confirmed by the Constitutional Court. But let's just to go back to the question of the rights of a trademark holder, right? So let me go to the point where I see this Jeremy Gordon lie about Solly and Abe Kroc, and then media. You say something about media that compels me to go back. After the lie started generating, I went and I redistributed my prospectus. And I said, I gave you that prospectus. You had it, and you're still running that lie. Jeremy Gordon himself he never apologized up to today. The Sunday Times, what's his name? Bongani Sitoko, I think it was what you call. In 2020, I told him that the Sunday Times lied about this. And now he apologized for that, what's that story? The SARS story. What's
the Rogue Unit story?
Rogue Unit story. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember
When
that.
he apologized for that, in that week I sent him a letter and I said, here's another apology that you have to make, in that you lied about this thing.
Now the sad thing there, we'll discuss this a little later though.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the interesting thing there is that he's still waiting for. You asked him to apologize after you had been given that sentence. That was, or is it before?
After who's?
After that sentence, the jail sentence was.
Oh, the jail sentence was in 2014.
And then now you asked him to apologize after that. So
yeah.
I think maybe he's sitting on some.
Well, he's got this. Many people have got this notion that if the judge says so, then why do you want to believe Mike? I'm telling you now. Take it from me. If I've said it 100 times, I'll say it again. The South African judiciary is corrupt to the core, as you said, and I'm telling you again that it's corrupt to the core. And the reason why Zondo will never have me at that State Capture Commission is because I am the only one that implicates the judiciary in state capture. Nobody. If former President Jacob Zuma really wanted to collapse that commission, he should insist that I get there. But the problem with that is that he's implicated in that. So is Thuli Madonsela. Thuli Madonsela is implicated in state capture through my case. At the time that I took sorry, I'm jumping too far. Just give me a moment. So give me a moment. Let me take your listeners back. I'm sorry about this, Sizwe. What then happens is that when I sue Gold Reef City Casino for the infringement of my trademark, Gold Reef City Casino turns around and they say, well, we're not using your trademark. It's a company called the South African Apartheid Museum at Freedom Park. It's got 8 words. Okay? They put that into their papers.
Did they get a trademark or anything for their 8 words?
You can't. No. A company is not a trademark, and a trademark is not a company.
See, all right.
A company is not a trademark, and a trademark is not a company. Okay? But when you're trying to find out who's king, it's the trademark that is the king.
All right. Okay.
In other words, the protection afforded a trademark is such that you could never go out there and say Sizwe's Apartheid Museum because you're infringing on my trademark.
On the trademark, I see. It doesn't matter how many words I add.
It doesn't matter. You can put 10 sentences on either side.
I'm gonna just pick your brain there on this one a bit. So, if I were to say Sizwe's Museum of Apartheid, would that work?
No.
Because it's still infringing.
You're still infringing on my trademark.
I see. Okay.
Do you get that?
So did you then find a way to engage these guys after they?
No, we end up going to court. Now, in order to understand the corruption in the judiciary, the moment on the very first page that a judge looks and he sees an application. So what they did is when I sued Gold Reef, they said they are not using my trademark. It is this 8-word company that is using my trademark, right?
Yeah.
8-word company.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a trademark. It's a company. Okay. So in the Companies Act, within the Companies Act, it says there that you cannot use somebody else's trademark. It's in the Companies Act. All right? So when a judge looks at the first page of the application for the expungement of my trademark, he should look at it and say, how did you bring this company into existence in the first place? Can I try that again?
Yeah.
Because you seem to...
No, it makes sense.
So in other words, here you are telling us all in this room that your 14-year-old son has got a Code 10 driver's license. Go ahead and try and tell me that.
I should tell you that my 14-year-old son has a Code 10 driver's license.
Is that possible? You know that that's impossible.
That's not going to happen, yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
As soon as you try to tell us that, we'll tell you you're lying. Why? Because we all know that we had to be 18 before we got a license.
Driver's license, yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So, for a judge to look at the front page, he has to say, how did you register that company in the first place?
Because the trademark already
the trademark
exists
is existing.
in some way.
So how did you do it?
So didn't you? Maybe these guys. Okay, your prospectus was all out there. Did they even at least try to approach you to discuss the use of your trademark or anything?
No.
They just went ahead and did it. You know that is what the main reason why you actually had to go to court.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about what happened in court when you guys?
Well, you can't cover. I can't cover 20 years of court. It starts with criminal Southwood, who was the Crocs brothers' attorneys. The first criminal in the judiciary is Southwood, who happens to that's an interesting part. Who happens to be the Croc brothers' attorneys in 1988 when they get to the Supreme Court of Appeal. Now, what happens in 1988 is that the Crocs are manufacturing skin whitening creams, right? They manufacture skin whitening creams. Now, there's a woman that comes from America who created, Americans know a product called Hollywood Curl. Now, in South Africa, the Crocs, to be able to manage to sell their skin whitening creams, had a product called Hollywood.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
She came to South Africa and she tried to register the company Hollywood Curl. The Crocs got up and said, what? we own the trademark Hollywood.
Hey.
Okay?
Okay. So
listen carefully now.
Yeah.
We own the trademark Hollywood in South Africa. You can't come from America and open a company using our trademark.
So in short, what happened there? The Crocs knew the rules of trademarks.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But then it gets messier than that. It gets more criminal and more violent than that. In that we end up in the Pretoria High Court, and who's the sitting judge?
This is one of the brothers from...
No. The sitting judge is the advocate that represented them in the Supreme Court of Appeal.
Oh, in 1988.
In 1988.
I see.
His name is Brian Southwood.
Okay.
He won the case on the very law that I'm telling you.
And then, now you are challenging them on the very same law. And then, now, what was the outcome there? I mean, could you just...
Well, it was an expungement of my trademark. That's the criminality that I'm telling you about in the judiciary.
Okay.
That's the criminality. But it gets worse than that. Because in South Africa, you have a situation where you don't get an advocate without an instructing attorney. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, in 1988, the advocate is Southwood. His instructing attorney is Owen Salmon. And the two of them defend the Kroc brothers trademark, and they win.
That's the Hollywood trademark.
That's the Hollywood trademark. Very good. Yes.
Based on that law, you go and you challenge them.
Thank
for
you.
running this without having...
Thank you.
While you have a trademark.
Thank you.
And
Southwood went against the precedent that he set in the Supreme Court of Appeal.
Okay. Now this brings me now back to
That's lovely.
your issue with the judiciary, because now it explains why you were so passionate earlier on. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, it will take too long for me to tell you about the incident in every courtroom. It's just every courtroom was corrupt, including the Constitutional Court. But the way to get at that is not with the finer detail. What you have to ask yourself is, how does it go from the High Court, this non-existent company, a company that cannot exist in law, and a company that I now know does not exist on paper. So come back to that question about how I know that it doesn't exist on paper, because that I'll tie up with Thuli Madonsela, right? Public protector. But let me finish this. Now, I'm trying to make it simpler for the viewer. In other words, the High Court, the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Constitutional Court have approved a 14-year-old child with a Code 10 driver's license. I'm making it simple for you.
Yeah.
They all looked at that paper and never, ever asked the question, how did you incorporate that company in the first place? When statutory law provides for the protection of trademarks, how on earth did you register that company in the first place? So, for these past 20 years, it's the company that doesn't exist, cannot exist in law, and doesn't exist on paper that has got me the prison sentence. So when we get to 2014, what happens is that the judiciary and Gold Reef, because Gold Reef has corrupted the judiciary. Now, both of them realize that this man is not going anywhere. The one thing that we can do is threaten him with a prison sentence. But they threaten me, and then they ask me to sign the apology. Right? So what I must do, so they threaten me with a prison sentence if I do not retract my public statements that they're all racists, fraudsters, liars, and thieves. Right? So they script the apology for me. If I had signed the apology, I couldn't have this interview with you.
If you had signed the apology, I just want to go into
It would have exonerated, it would, sorry to cut you short.
Yeah, no.
All right. It would have exonerated Gold Reef, the criminals.
Yeah.
It would have exonerated the judiciary. It would have exonerated Parliament, which starts with Nelson Mandela. They would have exonerated the executive. All right, the executive would be President Nelson Mandela, and then the legislature would be Parliament and the judiciary. Mine is the case of state capture. Jacob Zuma has never, until his recent problems, spoken about the judiciary. He doesn't go in there. There's nobody that goes there and say that the judiciary is corrupt. I'm the one that says that the judiciary is corrupt. And the three spheres of government are constituted by those three spheres that I just told you about. The executive, that is state capture. The state is made up of those. It's not made up of the two. It's made up of three. Judiciary, executive, and legislature. That's the state. So that's the constitutional state.
So you're saying effectively, if we're going to delve a bit into the Zondo situation here.
Yeah.
So if the Zondo Commission is probing state capture and it only probes the legislature and the executive without probing the judiciary,
that's not state capture. That's not definitive state capture.
So definitive state capture needs all three.
It needs all three. And my submission to Zondo says, you, so long as your name is on this judgment, you yourself are a criminal, as I told Mogoeng. And I would tell anybody else that the institution called the judiciary is corrupt. If you can stay for 20 years acknowledging that a 14-year-old can have a driver's license, how on earth can you do that? It has to be that you corrupt. It follows.
Yeah.
It can't. That's over 100 judges. Now you've got a situation of Hlope apparently trying to influence 2 judges. I'm telling you that if you brought my case, I'll show you 100 criminal judges, which makes the entire thing criminal.
I just want to go back to this other element. I'm not an expert on trademarks and things like that. Actually, I don't really follow it that much. But I've never quite heard of a trademark being expunged from anyway. Now, can you tell us more about that? Because
you have the right. You have the right to expunge a trademark if it hasn't been used, right?
And was that the case with your trademark?
Yes. But in 1998, my trademark, I just told you that I put it in the marketplace. It was doing its business. It was in the marketplace. It was, let me just explain that to you, by the way, because you're going to have some smart people. Trademarks are registered in 2 classes. The one is goods and the other one is services. Now, if you take out your cell phone and you look at the name of your cell phone, that is goods. Okay, that's goods. You get a packet of chips.
Yes.
Those are goods, whatever those chips are called. Services is typically, what could I give you?
A radio station.
A newspaper. A newspaper. What is your claim as a newspaper? I'll tell you what your claim is. Your claim is that you inform and that you even go out and say that you educate. Am I right about that?
Yes.
On the Southwood judgment, you are wrong.
You have to explain that.
On the Southwood judgment, you are wrong. What that criminal does is that he says the trademark is registered in education. And when he looks up the name education, it doesn't include publication. Now you're going to say that you're going to go and find the judgment. Go and find the judgment. Listen, Sizwe, everything that I am saying to you, I can prove. So don't look at me with that stark look, because I'm telling you something that I can prove. Please. Yeah. I'm saying to you, I can prove this. He says that, we're sitting in the courtroom and he says, please go upstairs and bring me the dictionary and tell me what's the dictionary's definition of education. He says, Lewa, you've given me the definition and publications, the mere publication of your prospectus doesn't qualify as education.
Oh, I see. So that's where his real problem was. Now,
no. Sizwe, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
No,
He didn't. No. He came into the court as a criminal. And so, and this is this thing about people, and they don't read the judgment in the sense that, I don't know how to say that. Southwood knows that the average person picks up a judgment and says, the judge can't be wrong, hey? The average person does that. And I'm saying to you that they are criminals, and and they know that you're going to accept that as being reasonable. And I'm saying to you, there's nothing reasonable in that. There's nothing reasonable in the argument that the crew sat tonight and they put together a newspaper and the guys went on the street and sold the newspaper. And that doesn't constitute education. How is that remotely possible? Just on common sense. And stop telling yourself it's a judge. I'm telling you the man is a criminal.
No, I get it. I get it.
And we do that all the time. We do that all the time. I think it's part of our colonial education. That just, and you know, it's just wrong. It's criminal. Now, and in order to do that, in order to show my point, the tables have turned. The tables have turned in the sense that if I am lying, they should be able to show you the statute that allowed that.
Okay.
They should be able to show you the law that allowed the company to be registered. But the Companies Act has got a prohibitive clause that says, don't do that. Please interrogate me so that your viewer understands what I mean by that. There's many laws. There are many laws that are written where it tells you what the law is, but it doesn't tell you what you mustn't do. But it tells you what the law is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
it doesn't tell you what you mustn't do. It can say that you qualify for a driver's license at age 18 and just leave it like that, without saying that you can't qualify for a driver's license at 14. But the Companies Act says you can't use somebody else's trademark in your company.
That one is quite clear about what you must not do.
It's called a prohibitive clause.
Yeah.
It's there because the Trademarks Act recognizes that you own that property. It's your property. It's like your title deeds.
I
really need to emphasize. It's yours. It's your intellectual effort that brings that about. And the law recognizes you internationally for bringing that about.
So now, effectively, just so I can get my dates in order here. So the Gold Reef City guys started using the Apartheid Museum before your trademark was expunged.
Yes.
So that's that. So that is where the infringement came in.
Yes.
And that is when you had to go to court.
Yes. Oh, that now you got it.
Okay.
Now you got it. How did you register the company before the expungement of the trademark?
Right. Now, is there a date on that bit? Because I mean, do we have like proper records of that date? Because I think that would actually help out a lot. Well,
the what you call they say they opened the Apartheid Museum in 2001, in November, December of 2001.
Because that speaks to the 3 years from 1998 to when they were given 3 years.
They say they met the terms of the temporary license.
Okay.
So they need to be endorsed as the permanent license.
So that happened in 2001. And when was
no. That happens in that happens in hold on a second. Oh, that's a very good question. So the temporary license is awarded in 1998, right?
Yes.
So they've got the 3 years to complete it. So they say they've completed it.
In 2001.
In 2001.
And then when did your trademark get expunged from the record?
2000. We're in court. 2002. Southwood happens in 2003.
So these guys effectively had no rights to use
Yes.
your trademark before it gets expunged from the record. They needed to do that. So now, here's the thing. How did the judge come to that conclusion? I understand that you like to highlight the fact that they're corrupt, or I'm not going to say it's a fact, but I know you like to highlight that. But how do you think the judge?
It's my words, Sizwe. You can go along with it. You can just leave it standing there. Don't dispute it. It's my words.
Yeah, not a problem. I just want to check how, in your view, do you think the judges came to that conclusion? To say, you know what, did they not have any kind of record showing that these guys are already trading? And, like, where was the confusion? I mean, I'm trying to get to, the logical reasoning, that the judges might have used to get to that decision.
That's because you're trying to defend the judges.
I'm not trying to defend the judges.
There's nothing logical or reason after the point that you look. Sorry, I just need to divert a little bit. Mm-hmm. I do not know what inspired you about 1994. I do not know. And some people walk around with the notion that they're happy that Nelson Mandela and everybody was released. And I keep on saying to you that we that were out here were in prison anyway by this criminal and violent regime. We were in prison anyway. And I'm sure that the Robben Island was a lot more, and exile was just so very traumatic. But for me, let me tell you what for me 1994 meant. It meant constitutional law, the rule of law. If we do not have the rule of law, we may as well go back to that circumstance that we had. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the rule of law applies to everybody without fear or favor or prejudice. In this particular instance, the entire judiciary for 20 years prejudiced me, a black person, for white people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes...
And it collapses the foundation, the very foundation that the African National Congress calls freedom. It's a farce, and it is a lie. It's a total lie.
Now, what form of recourse might you have tried over the years after this was stolen from you? Like, what options do you have? I mean, after the judicial system clearly didn't work, do you have any other options that you might want to look into?
It's almost as though, it's this tendency to want to educate. And so I'm going to answer your question not in the way that you expected. This country is ours. It's ours. Mogoeng owes you an answer. And and when you get the courage, you get up and say, I am a citizen, and this is what Mike Stainbank said, you are corrupt. My taxes pay you your money. My taxes pay your salary. That's why your children live the way they live, because my taxes pay your salary. You should begin to say that to the person that you voted into parliament. You should be able to say that to the executive. You should be able to say that to the judiciary. They live the lifestyles that they live off your back. And you trusted advocate, what's his name, Vincent Maleka. You trusted senior advocate Ishmael Semenya to guard over these white people that applied for the license with a couple of blacks, so-called blacks. They have a duty to you. The Gauteng Gambling Board has a duty to you because you paid their salaries to police those people. It's a condition. Probity is the central condition of any gambling license anywhere in the world. If you lose that probity, you've lost it. And I'm saying that, and so you're asking me for what is it that I'm in a way of, and you talk about my active, that's my central lesson on Twitter. Stop this whole thing that John Steenhuisen is your leader. Stop this thing that Julius Malema is your leader, or Bantu Holomisa or Cyril Ramaphosa. Those are not your leaders. Those are your servants. Stop that. Those are your servants. And if you voted for Steenhuisen and the DA or whoever, Julius Malema, Bantu Holomisa, it doesn't matter. You have the duty to say, I want to know how this happened because the last salary that you earned, you got it from me. And people are not doing that. Oh, my leader, what the hell? Why do you want to do that? He's your servant.
Yeah, no, clearly we need to change our mindset, because that leadership situation is something that has been, embedded into our heads and repeated so many times such that we see it like that. But now the question is, how would you suggest we go about, fixing that? Would you suggest a massive campaign, or how would you suggest we change that mindset?
Gosh, yeah, we're just doing it wrong. It's all in the education system, and that becomes a huge question. But as huge as that question is, this is the perfect platform on which to raise it. Mm-hmm. This is the platform on which to raise it, so that you stop looking towards that parliament building and thinking that there's a whole lot of wisdom amongst those 400 racists and other people that are passing off for black there.
Yeah,
it's nothing like the general public really knows. I have called them. These are my words, so don't apologize for them, okay? These are my words. I'm saying to you, I've referred to them as 400 racists and non-white slaves. That's what they are in that parliament building. Mm. You don't get a black person getting up there to take up this issue. And it's Parliament that writes the law.
Okay.
So when you get to the person that you voted for, that is earning a salary of your tax, please show me the law that you wrote that allows that company to be registered using Mr. Stainbank's trademark.
Yeah.
You have to go to that person. Stop calling me your leader.
Okay, no problem.
And I'm sorry, I'm not taking issue with you. I'm just talking to a general public.
No, relax. No,
sorry about that.
In fact, speaking of which, I've been prolonging this question for a while because I was actually waiting for you to calm down. And I'm glad you are
I
now.
get too emotional. Yeah.
You said that you were sentenced. You had a jail sentence in 2014, and that sentence was upheld by or confirmed by the Constitutional Court.
Yes.
Have you served a day in jail in your life since that time?
No, and that's another issue that you can take up. If your judgment is correct, why is this man still walking the streets?
Yes, that's the
and
question.
You have that as a citizen. That too you can do. That too you can do.
So they said you must go to jail, but they didn't put you in jail.
I wrote to them, and I said, according to the court order, Keatley's court order, you are to issue a warrant for my arrest. And you haven't done that. Could you please issue the warrant for my arrest?
You requested?
I requested a warrant for my arrest. And they refused to issue the warrant for my arrest. Now you as a citizen have got to ask the question, why is my uncle sitting in jail and you have sentenced Mike Stainbank to jail, but you haven't put him in jail? Why is my brother in jail? Why is my aunt in jail? Why is my neighbor in jail? Those are the questions that you should be asking. But the judiciary knows that they're criminal in the scheme. Now, so what then happens is that they lose the courage to put me in jail. They don't have that kind of courage. It was a threat on their part. That's why the written apology, so that they can exonerate themselves. That's why I had to sign that apology. If I had signed that apology, then all of that...
Everything would be gone.
No. If I had signed that apology, all of those media that are involved in this criminality were standing by and waiting for me to sign. Then you would have seen it on the front page of the Sunday Times. Finally, he apologizes. He's been wrong all of this time. I told him to go.
Yeah, so Bro Mike, you raise this interesting thing here about, we should actually be asking this question of if my uncle is sentenced to jail, he's put in jail, and some people are not, you being one of them. The question I have is that, do you have any idea where or what kind of structures may be in place that may allow us to actually ask that question?
Well, there's actually no reason why you couldn't go to Chief Justice Mogoeng himself. But what I understand about human nature is that the average person is either scared or reluctant or whatever. But if you and 100 friends listen to what I'm saying, maybe there's comfort in numbers. So you can take this to Mogoeng and say, I want to give you a copy of this where Mike Stainbank says the judiciary is corrupt. You could do that. Collect 1,000 people and go do that. And tell him that you pay him his salary. You can do that. You can, if you're scared to do it on your own, you can do that. But for me, the one person that needs you most, other than Mogoeng, is that person in Parliament. The one that is earning a salary of your taxes. And whenever he speaks, they tell you that they are your servants. They tell you. And the minute the man tells you that he is your servant, then you, and I'm accusing now the general public, says, yes, my leader. Why the hell?
Yeah.
So the one person that needs you desperately is the one that needs to get into Parliament. So whether you voted for the ANC, whether you voted for EFF, whether you voted for DA, whoever you voted for, you go either by yourself or you go as a group, and you say that we voted for you.
Okay.
Now,
yeah.
And those people, those ones, the ones in Parliament, are the ones that need you most.
Okay. No, that makes sense. You've quite clarified that quite, clearly. I'm just now more concerned about you, and I'm getting this thing that this has been quite a hectic 20-odd years for you.
It's violent. It's been violent. Yeah. Sorry.
How can you tell us a little bit more about that? And some of the experiences. Maybe you got some links, or let's say maybe interactions with some of the politicians and things like that.
I have very little interaction with politicians because they avoid me at all costs. Because I've tried my best to tell them, like I say to you, the Speaker, the Parliament, all 13 in 2018. I delivered a complaint to all political parties about the judiciary. I delivered what I've told you today.
Yeah.
I have told your servants. I have told them. Okay, those 13. But whenever I sit down and I try to do an overall assessment of what happened, I cannot help but go back to that critical day in or about February, March of 1999. Because, let me just explain, and for me, everything turns at the point that President Nelson Mandela solicits a bribe from Abe and Solly Krok. And then you always open your eyes hard when I say things like that. And I'm trying to get you to calm down and say that.
Okay.
This is not my version. It's the version of somebody that was in the room. The guy's name is Zakes Mda. He's a renowned international author. So what happens is that Zakes Mda says that Rule Khoza calls him and says, we've got an urgent meeting at Mr. Mandela's house in Lower Houghton. Please be there. And he says he was running late, etc. And then when he gets there, there's everybody, and he says that it was me and John Carney, but the rest were all white. So in the process, and Zeiksenda calls it an endorsement meeting. Now, this 48-page prospectus of mine was delivered. I printed 5,000 of these. And I delivered this to this year. If you want to find this is sitting in Parliament since 1998.
Oh, okay.
All right? And so when the Kroc brothers visit President Nelson Mandela, they ask him to endorse it, to endorse them as the visionaries for the Apartheid Museum.
Had President Mandela seen this prospectus?
Now, on the 29th of January 1999, my prospectus is out in 1998, right? In 1999, Mr. Mandela writes to me, and he says that he's had an opportunity to see the prospectus, and his last sentence says, "I believe that this is good for nation building." Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not within 60 days of that, the Kroc brothers visit Mr. Mandela, and they say to him, "Well, you know, we want to be," and Zeiksenda tells the story, and you can read the story, it's in his book, okay?
Yeah.
So he tells the story about how they're sitting there and they're asking Mr. Mandela to endorse it. And Mr. Mandela says, "You know, every time I see you, I see money."
Mr. Mandela telling the Kroc brothers.
Yes. And Zeiksenda says he giggles and he promises that he will give more money. Now, when the Krocs have decided to steal this thing, right? They decide to steal, to switch from Freedom Park and to Watchcall. There's these newspapers that put Mandela and the Krocs, Mandela and the Krocs, Mandela and the Krocs. And I'm kind of like, at that time, hold on, Zeiksenda book comes out in 2011.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, okay. All right.
Now, so when I see this Mandela, the media connecting Mandela with the Krocs, I ask my attorney and my advocate, let's go there and go and warn them that these are criminals that are falsely associating Mr. Mandela with their theft of my intellectual property. The guy's name at that time, now it's Sello Hatang. At that time that we went there, it was Vern Harris. Vern Harris is Sello Hatang's predecessor. So we go into this meeting and I say to them, does Mr. Mandela know these guys? These are low-life criminals. Abraham and Solomon Kroc are low-life criminals out of the Jewish community. And I keep on seeing this. So Sello Hatang and Vern Harris tell us that we mustn't take it seriously. Everybody wants to be with Mandela.
But meanwhile,
sorry to interrupt, but we then take that as being, well, what more can you say? You know, and we know that happens. So what more can we say? We walk away from there. They deny that, right? It's then in 2011, Zeiksenda publishes his book. Sello Hatang and Vern Harris knew that the Krocs were there and they were doing. Up until Zeiksenda publishes the book, I did not know that Mr. Mandela was in a corrupt relationship with Gold Reef City Casino.
But then if you look at the timeline now, when you look at it in retrospect, 98, they want that temporary license.
Yeah.
And then they pick on what you had already trademarked.
Yes.
Then 99, they start getting these high-powered people to back them up.
Now,
and like you said, you didn't have any powerful people linking yourself, and then you lose it in 2001. That must be a bit of a tragedy.
Yeah, it's and the approach that they did was right, because white people had created this saint out of Mandela, didn't they? And by the way, just as a matter of interest, Mandela's twice been implicated in taking bribes.
Oh, is it?
Yes, he was implicated with Saul Kersner and the bribe, and that's when that whole Bantu Holomisa thing takes effect. Remember that?
Yeah.
The Saul Kersner giving a bribe to the African National Congress through you know that story. It's a true story. You can look it up. Yeah. Saul Kersner and Watchko. So Mr. Mandela has been doing this for a while. So when the Crocs associate themselves with Mr. Mandela, the world then says, this guy, where's this guy coming from? Even Mandela said that the Crocs did this. But Mr. Mandela did it at a price. He took his pound of flesh, as the African National Congress will always take its pound of flesh. This idea, my heart gets so sore for these millennials, you know what they call the born frees?
Yeah.
Because they're studying all of that stuff that the African National Congress puts into their textbooks. And then they get on Twitter and they're wanting to argue with me. And I'm kind of like, but you got that out of your textbook and it's a lie.
Yeah, you know, Pramak, litigation is quite a costly, kind of process and things like that. Now, I'm just curious, how were you able to sustain this over this long period of time?
I ran a company called Stainbank and Associates, and I was doing well, actually. But my primary source of income was the Eske Institute. I founded the Eske Institute based on the life and works of Professor Eske Mpahlele. And one of the principal funders of the Eske Institute was the National Lotteries Board. All right? And now, because of my interaction with the National Lotteries Board, I came across a company called SA Apartheid Museum that had applied to the National Lotteries Board for funding.
Now, is this the same one as the one that's...
No, this is a 3-word company. It's SA Apartheid Museum. It's not 8 words. It's SA Apartheid Museum. And when I investigate that, I find that it's got the same registration number as the 8-word company that kept me in litigation for all of these years. So I tell the National Lotteries Commission, that time it was called the National Lotteries Board, I tell them that if you have a company that is using my trademark, you have an illegal company on law that you have given money to. Now, in order to grasp the criminality of the African National Congress does not employ cadres for what you call, they employ them for criminality. Now, let's go back to the time that I'm talking. Rob Davies, or rather the Minister of the Department of Trade and Industry, he controls the Gambling Act. He controls the CIPC, which does the company registration, and he controls the Lotteries Board, right?
Right.
Now, if you see him in control of those, and he controls the trademarks register as well. Okay, all right. So those are 4 things now, in terms of everything that I've told you. So now what happens is that I have found a company that exists using my trademark, and for emphasis, it's a 3-word company. The one that took me to court that Gold Reef City Casino said is trading with my trademark. It turns out that the 8-word company that they said is trading with my trademark has never traded a single day in its life. So it's the three-word company that was registered in 2001 by the firm of Edward Nathan Friedland Pty Limited that is owned by Nedbank. In 2001, Edward Nathan Friedland Pty Limited is not a law firm. It is a law consultancy firm that is owned by Nedbank. When you're wanting to sort out, I've given you all about the judiciary, the legislature, and I've given you all of that. But the private interest, if somebody were to break this case down to find where does the criminality begin? Yes, I've given you about Mandela and all of that kind of stuff. But the criminality is in the heart of Nedbank with Jewish guy Michael Katz. He's the head of Edward Nathan Friedland Pty Limited, which is a law consultancy firm. So when I find that company, you find that that company was registered by Edward Nathan Friedland, right?
That's the three.
That's the three-word SA Apartheid Museum with the same registration number as the 8-word company, which is an impossibility. It's absolute. Your idea and my idea is not the same, no matter how nice we look together. So I'm saying to you, that number 2001-019108/08 is unique to one company, but I find it in two.
So effectively, what could have happened here is that one of the companies is a non-existent company.
Both of them cannot exist on law. Both of them cannot exist on law. But the one does have papers.
Which one is the one that has papers?
SA Apartheid Museum is actually registered at SARS.
So effectively, they took you to court.
Yes.
And used a non-existent company.
A non-existent company, and that's the thing you've got to say to your parliamentary or your what's his name, Moseneke or Mogoeng, your Chief Justice. That for 20 years they kept me in litigation with a company that doesn't exist, cannot exist on law, and doesn't exist on paper. But that other one that got the loan from the Lotteries Board, that got the grant from the Lotteries Board, that one does exist. It's got a tax number, it's got everything. So the tourists that went there and paid their money, they paid it to, that was the company that was trading all of this time. Now, I meant to tell you about Thuli Madonsela. I had said to Thuli Madonsela that this company doesn't exist. The 8-word company doesn't exist.
Yes.
She went to Rob Davies and she secured that file. And they gave me 81 pages of an absolute fraud. So they took that one that was registered, photocopy, paste. You know that whole,
Effectively, they tried to clone the...
Thank you. They tried to clone the papers. But it's so palpable, it's impossible to clone. But I'm getting to the point of the essay. Once I had unraveled that, I have to take you quickly to the SK Institute. The SK Institute was my primary source of income. It was a functioning organization with employees. Now, when I uncovered that, at the time, the Lotteries Board owed the SK Institute 34 million rand by way of contract. In order to stop my litigation, they said that they will cut off my income. And the way that they cut off the income is to shut down the SK Institute and not give the 34 million rand. But they then don't get at me. They get at the whole SK Institute. They wipe out everything that we've done. In the knowledge of the judiciary, the executive and the legislature. They shut the SK Institute with all of its employees because they want me. And then they take that money. And everybody's quiet. They just close it down.
want to thank all our viewers for watching. Please join us again in our next edition of the Press Club. And please follow the hashtag Justice for Mike on our social media.